Debbie, thank you for joining me. I'm really excited for you to share your story with the viewers on this video. So, can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, Rich. Thanks for having me today. I grew up in the Midwest, wasn't a real big fan of school, so writing was never really on my hot list. However, I've had such an interesting life that around the late 80s, everyone kept saying, "You need to write a book, you need to write a book, you need to write a book." I thought, who would read my book? What story do I have to tell? And then the day that I got the call that I had breast cancer, I was making a deal with the Lord that if you get me through this, I will promise to pay it forward. And so that's that day I knew at some point in my near future I would be writing a book about my journey.
So, can you tell us a little more about what's in your book?
Absolutely, without giving all the goodies away.
Absolutely.
Actually, it's intended to be a guide for anyone that has been diagnosed with cancer. It talks about my the day I got the call, the journey that I took from there through the several surgeries through the course of the year, some things that I wish I would have known, some helpful pieces of information, a little education, a little inspiration, and hopefully you'll laugh a couple of times throughout the way.
Good. Can you share one or two of the tips that are in your book? So, it's intended for women who have been diagnosed with breast cancer to give them an idea of what to expect. What are one or two things that you might want to just share with them to entice people to read the full book?
It is intended for women. However, I did include my husband's point of view, how the journey affected us, our relationship, how it affected him, and how was able to help. So whether your caregiver is your husband or your sister or your brother, does have helpful hints in it for all.
Good. And one thing I really liked about the way you laid out your story is you told a lot about what to expect and what to look for in a doctor and what not to look for in a doctor. So, can you share one or two tips on when you're trying to find caregivers, both people in your personal life and people in the medical field? What do you look for when you want someone to help you get through this?
That's a great question, and one thing I do cover in my book are the three team players that you need on your team. You need your caregiver. You need someone who can help you through the insurance world, and I'll go into that a little more. And then you also need a point person. The person is just to communicate with everyone that cares about you. And like my point person did a meal train and communicated to everyone who was doing what. Just those three people are a key. Now, I have an insurance background. I've been in insurance for 35 years, and have never been in medical, and it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming because your doctor can be in network. They could recommend a surgeon that's not. Well, you don't know any better, or the normal just would go to the surgeon that the doctor recommends. But I happened to notice that mine was not in network and it was going to cost me a minimum of an additional $25,000. And so I didn't even meet him because I thought as soon as I met him, all I'm going to see is $25,000 written on his forehead. So I found a doctor that I loved in network. Then you have to check the facility to make sure the facility's in network. You have to check the anesthesiologist, everyone that touches you, if you are wanting to my bills were over 300,000 for the 5 surgeries. I don't know how someone without insurance gets through that. And I made a 4-inch binder, and every piece of paper I got in the mail was in the binder by date, and it was confusing even for someone with insurance. So, um, do your research on your doctors. Don't just automatically assume you have to go to the one that your oncologist recommends. If you meet him and you don't like him or he's not in network, it's your body, it's your life, and you get to choose who puts Humpty Dumpty back together again. And same with your oncologist. I was lucky, I guess lucky that I'd had an oncologist that I'd gone to for 10 years because I've had several melanomas. So I didn't have to research that part. He also is a specialist in breast cancer. But had I not had him, I would have done equal research for my oncologist as well.
Good. And I love the way your book explains it in plain English. It's easy to understand. It's clear you understand the medical aspects, but you can explain it in a way that people who don't understand the medical aspects can understand it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Good.
it was an education process for me. And I always like to pay forward any information I have in my head that would be helpful for anybody.
Good, good. I'm so glad that you did. And the readers, the people who are viewing this video, hopefully, if they know someone who's going through breast cancer or really any kind of cancer, they can share your book and it will inspire and educate them.
Right. Exactly. Thank you, Rich. And you made a good point. It's not just for breast cancer. The information could be for any type of critical illness, in it, including inclusive of cancer.
Good. All right. So let's go back to writing the book. Can you tell us how you got started? What was it that finally spurred you on to put words to pages?
Debbie Blackwell. I think we all need nudges, and I knew that I would do it, and I really wished I wouldn't have waited so long because I didn't journal as much as that I thought I would. So waiting 8 months to start it, I really, and as you know, I told you this my story, and then when I went to put it on paper, I didn't really want to go back there. I didn't want to go back to that day and that moment. So I was being very high level. And with your encouragement and your nudging, we got down to the feelings and going back to that day and what I was feeling but I wish that I would have written it sooner. I wish I would have written it right after I got through my year of surgeries instead of waiting a few months.
And you
But
mentioned Debbie
it was
Blackwell.
a little voice that kept saying, you need to start your book. You need to start your book. Yeah, I know, I know, I know. I think we all have a story in us, and I can sit here and think of other things I'd love to write a book about. But I think I'll take a course in spelling and English first. There was too many spell check and grammar checks going on there, so should have
So
paid more attention in high school.
you mentioned Debbie Blackwell. Can you tell us a little bit about who she is and how she motivated you to start writing?
Debbie's a good friend of mine. We met through a mutual friend many years ago, and Debbie's been going through a transition in her life. And she started a book. She had several books she wanted to start, and all just so excited about it. And she started hers, and then life took over. And so she had planned on having hers done by July 19th, I think it was. So now I'm the one nudging her to get back on the horse. But it is easy to get discouraged. I thought that I was going to send my first draft to Rich, and he was going to say, "Oh my God, this is the best first draft I've ever seen. We don't need to make any changes at all." Well, that's not the way it works. And I'm so glad that we did rearrange the chapters because I have asked several friends that have started my book, and they get stuck at around chapter 4 or 5. And that's exactly where I start talking about my background, my family. So you're right not to have started that way, because we would have lost a lot of people.
Yeah,
But
good.
with your help, we were able to rearrange the chapters and made all the difference in the world. But I would not have thought to have started off the way that it did. I just chronological order. It'll start off with my background, and then we'll go to my cancers, and then we'll go to. So I was halfway in the book before I started talking about breast cancer, as you pointed out. So great job of coaching.
Good, good. So let's talk about the writing process. Can you tell us where you wrote, what time of day, what days of the week? Like, what was your writing approach?
I did not have a schedule. You had encouraged me to just start writing stories. So we went on a vacation, and I took just a regular notebook while we were on the beach, and I started just writing things that I knew I wanted to include, but not in any order. And then when I got back, I started putting my stories together and then naming them by chapters. And then I was getting all caught up in the table of content. And you're like, there's something you really can't do till you're finished. But I was trying to do that along the way. So that was a lesson I would say is just don't even worry about that or naming your chapters. Wait until you're done with your book. And then the name of the chapters will come into play. But I didn't have a schedule. I started a couple weeks after we partnered up, and I finished in like a month. But by the time we got through the several edits and several copies going back and forth, and then with your help, you edited as well as Jennifer Evans from Frisco Writers Club. She was huge help. And so she edited in the beginning after the first draft, and then again in the end after we had made several changes. So couldn't have done it without that. I also had several friends read it, edit it as well. And I think fresh eyes always catches a couple things. There's a couple things I probably need to change now, but the good thing about self-publishing is you can go back and correct spelling errors. Or I got a quote from my oncologist office I want to add, a direct quote, and so I'd like to add that. And so you can go back and make changes. And
And
that's the advantage of self-publishing.
one thing you said that I don't know if many viewers are going to catch, but you said you wrote the book in about 4 weeks. That's very uncommon. So you must be very focused or very fast or very something to be able to get the first draft written in 4 weeks. Can you tell us what was it about your approach that allowed you to get all that content out so quickly?
Well, when I first started, I had things that I wanted to say, and I was on chapter 4, and it was only 6 pages long, and I was like, "Oh, wow, this is going to be a pamphlet." So that was when we talked, and you said you have to go deeper, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I have to go deeper." So once I dove in and I went back there, then I just stayed. I just stayed there. I stayed through the spot of uncertainty and fear and doubt through the whole book writing. And I try to tap into, the days I cried, the days I tried to laugh about it, and, just stayed in that mode until I was finished. A part that was probably harder for me was after we redid the chapters and cutting and pasting, and then I felt like I had to write more to transition them out. So it was almost like starting over. So I think if I had it to do over, I would probably run by you for my next book that I'm going to write about travel, the order of which I'm thinking, and then go from there. And then we'll talk about it beforehand before I get too knee deep in it. So that was, and I think that's where Debbie is too. She's, you redid the chapters, and then it's just like, oh, that's, it's kind of like rewriting the book. So just have to, I would encourage anyone to have that dialogue with you first about what their thoughts are about the chapters and the order of which.
Good. So once somebody does that, they get the organization done in terms of what chapters should be in which order, and they dump
Mhm.
that first draft out of their head, and they've got all these words in a document. What do you recommend they do next?
All these words in a document. Edit it and send it to a couple people for feedback, and send it and before they send it to you. But I don't know. I think sending it to you was, my friends all said, even my sister, who I thought would be critical, was not. She thought it was great, so she wouldn't have made any changes, and we made a lot of changes after that. So I don't know. Maybe I would just directly send it to you and have that conversation first.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point is people who have never written a book typically tend to be nice to people who are writing a book, and they tend to
Right.
say, "Oh, it's great, it's fine, everything's okay." I found that other writers can be more constructive in that they won't tell you your first draft is great because frankly nobody's first draft is great. Most people's first draft is just a bunch of words that need some
Yeah.
work, but you managed to take that first draft and really bring the emotion into the book, bring the flow so that the reader could follow along with you. And I love the way it turned out. One thing I did want to touch base on is your approach to getting a book cover. So you and I talked about different options for getting a book cover. Can you tell us how you found the artist who
I
gave you the
wish
book
that I
cover?
would have done this with my logo and my web design. So I will use landscaper.com for everything. So I went on per Rich's assistance. We had a call one day and he helped me set up my request on landscaper.com. So I headlined it. I wanted a fun, funky book cover, and some keywords: breast cancer, pink, black, the colors I wanted. I included two of the photos that had not been edited yet because the finished pictures had not come back, and said use these photos. And I did a 5-day contest, and within I cut it off before the 5 days. I had over 200 entries. So you start liking things, and then the designers will come back with 4 or 5 versions of what you just said you liked, with different fonts. And it was one of the funnest parts of the process was the book cover and the photo shoot.
Good. So you've got your first draft is done, it's been edited, you've got your book cover. Once all of the content was done, your manuscript and your book cover, how difficult was the actual publishing process?
The publishing process was just a little tricky because only because of the dimensions that each, like Barnes and Noble has different dimensions than Amazon. The spine has to be, that was something that my designer didn't ask me, was how many pages my book was. So he had designed a fixed spine, probably it was like 3/4 of an inch. And so it has to be down to the T. And you were able to make a lot of adjustments for me, but that is something that your designer should ask up front is how many pages your book is. And that, that, that would decrease a lot of the going back and forth that I had with my designer. I don't think my designer had done a lot of book covers, and that's something you may want to ask too. How many book covers have you done?
Good,
And then
good.
I tried another little exercise on Landscaper, or Freelancer. I keep saying Landscaper, on Freelancer. Uh, and it was, I wanted a logo crest for my 65th birthday extravaganza. And I put it out on a Saturday morning, and by noon I had over 500 entries. So
Wow.
I didn't even run it a day. I cut it off at like 11:30. It was crazy. So the designers will work for peanuts. I think I paid $50 for my book cover, my for each one, because I have two different ones. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Good. All right. So it sounds like you enjoy freelancer.com. You like doing design contests. You might do more and more design contests anytime you need a design done.
Exactly.
In terms of the actual publishing, from the time you uploaded your book, I think Kindle Direct Publishing was the fastest in terms of turnaround time. Do you remember how long it was from the
It
time you
took about
uploaded your
2
book?
days for before it hit Amazon, and then I ordered one, and stepped off the plane from the weekend. I ordered it over the weekend, and it had been delivered. So, they print them, as you know, as they are ordered. So, if you place a big order, like I placed a large order, for my book signing, it takes longer because it's, if you order 100, it's gonna take a couple weeks, but if you order 1 or 2, they're out pretty quickly.
Good. So how did you feel when you got the first physical copy of your book?
Oh, it was pretty exciting. I was waiting for I had a happy hour scheduled, shocking, and I was, getting ready to leave, and I could see Amazon driver was 10 stops away, 8 stops away, 6 stops away, and I was like, "What's taking him so long?" And so I met him at the truck, basically. He pulled in the neighborhood, and he stopped a few houses over, and I was like, "Oh, it's killing me." So, he pulls up to the house, and I run over to the truck, and I said, "This is my book. This is my book." And he said, "Okay, well, let me scan it." Like he could have cared less. And so my husband handed him my phone, and he took a picture of me opening the box of my book, um, of my books. And so that was a pretty exciting moment as well. And then I did get to see the hard copy. Several people saw the hard copy before I did because I was out of town, and it came in while I was gone. But I had people sending me pictures, and so that was pretty exciting.
Good. So who did you tell once you actually got a copy?
Everybody. I posted it. I don't think my friends actually thought I would finish my book. I think everyone says, "Oh, yeah," because when I would talk about it, they were like, "Oh, yeah, sure." I don't think they actually thought I would finish it. So when I did, they're very, very proud of me. And everyone, all of my close friends that have read it, have been very sweet and sent me nice emails about it. It's very informative, and it's great. Proud of you for putting yourself out there because it's not easy to share that personal part of your life with everyone. I mean, it's pretty personal. And although I have always been an open book, that takes it to a new level. So, but we did take out a few chapters, didn't we, Rich?
Yes. So I would say you have a lot of stories in your life. We just saved some stories for a future book.
Yeah, exactly,
Good.
exactly, for a different audience.
So you
But it
have
was a lot of
plans.
fun. It was very rewarding. I would encourage anyone. I've had several people say, "Well, I may call you because I really have been thinking about a couple of different book ideas," and I said, "I've got the person to help."
Good.
So I think everyone has a story. It's so rewarding. Start it. Once you start it, you won't want to put it down. Now, I don't understand how someone can start a book, write a couple chapters, and then not do anything for a year. I mean, to me, that just if you're going to start it, finish it, chunk it out, get it going, and it just gives you such a joy in life to know that you've shared and you have an opportunity to help others.
Good. And I know you're not done with just the book. So I know a book is a huge accomplishment, but can you tell us what you're planning to do now that you have the book published?
Now that the book's published, I plan to get as many speaking engagements as I can. We are moving to Florida to a retirement community in a year. We're building a house. So whether they're here or there or anywhere, whether it's a small group of women or the Bridge Breast Gala that's this month that I'm speaking at. We did not have an honorary chair, and we were trying to get D. Simmons and several other people. And finally, they said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I was like, "Perfect." So worked out well. I'm excited. Breast Bridge is an organization that provides insurance or mammograms, needle biopsies, mastectomies, all the treatment for poverty stricken women or women who don't have insurance or underinsured. So it provides the services they need to recover for those who don't have coverage. And like I said earlier, I cannot imagine not having coverage. It was stressful enough with having insurance coverage, but to think that you're not going to be able to have your needle biopsy or you're not going to be able to have the treatment that you need would just be awful. So this is an organization that helps women, and so I want to just continue to pay it forward. My message, early detection, and um, sharing your story, whatever your story is, that you can pay it forward. I would encourage you to do. It's very rewarding.
Good. Well, your book does a wonderful job of empowering people to share their story and encouraging them to get help along the way. Where can people find out more about you and your guest speaking availability?
My website is bootingbreastcancer.com. My email is Deborah at bootingbreastcancer. All my information's on there. There will be a link shortly where you will link over to Amazon, or you'll be able to buy the book from the website. But currently, you can purchase both the hard copy and the softback on Amazon. And just let me know, and I'll be happy to autograph it and send it back for you.
Good.
My
Love it.
husband just
And
thinks I'm hilarious because I went to Michael's the other day and he said, "What do you need to get?" I said, "Well, 2 pink pens for my autograph signing."
that's great.
I
So,
said, "I know we're not gonna get rich. That's not what it's about. It's about sharing the story for
yeah,
you."
and the book is available in ebook, paperback, and hardcover. So, regardless of how people like to read their books, you've got an option for them.
That's right.
Good. Any parting advice for anybody who is thinking about writing a book? Any words of encouragement that you'd like to share or any advice?
Just take the first step. Once you get that notebook and you write the first couple of paragraphs, then your mind will just start to roll, and don't stop. I mean, once you start it, and don't put it aside. And well, obviously you have to work and you have to sleep and you have to eat, but I meant don't let life get in the way of something that you want to do for you and that you want to accomplish for yourself.
Well, thank you, Debbie. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I encourage my
Absolutely.
viewers, get the book. It's fantastic. It's a fairly easy read. I think I read it in a couple hours. It's a plane ride book, and a very wonderful story of your life and your ability to overcome breast cancer and encourage other people.
Well, thank you. It was my pleasure and my blessing to be able to share it, to be here today to share it.
Good. Thanks, Debbie.